My tomato plants are finally taking off in the garden. This bed right here is my San Marzanos, which are indeterminate ones. And you can see the growth that they have been putting on lately. I swear they're growing like, this is gonna sound like an exaggeration, but like this much a week. I feel like I just put this second row of the Florida weave in last week and they're already, I mean, they're really due for another one, but that's not what I'm out here doing today. I need to prune all of my tomatoes. I'm gonna be pruning both beds my Indeterminate, so these ones and the beefsteaks and Cherokee purples. And then I need to prune all 3 of my Roma tomatoes, which are my Determinate variety. And there's similarities, but also differences in how I'm gonna prune both varieties. So I wanna take you guys through it and just show you how I do my Indeterminate tomatoes and then also how I do my Determinate tomatoes. If you don't know what pruning is at all and you're like, I don't even know where to begin. Pruning is basically when you remove parts of the plant to encourage, I don't want to say more fruiting because it's not always the goal, but pruning is basically where you remove parts of the plant to encourage better growth or just better health overall for the plant. So in my Indeterminate varieties, I'm removing parts of the plant to create more airflow. I'm also removing parts of the plant so that when I do start getting tomatoes, the energy is used to grow fewer really big tomatoes rather than a ton of like smaller sized tomatoes. So a lot of benefits in pruning. My favorite one is the fact that they give them so much airflow. I'll clip in so you guys see before how everything looks, and then you'll see after, and you'll really see what I mean in terms of how much that benefits airflow. And tomatoes are a crop that can get disease really easily, really quickly if it's too wet. And sometimes, not really if it's too warm, but when it gets really wet and humid and moist, it's so easy for disease to spread. And it's easier when they're all touching each other and they don't get a lot of airflow. So it's just really important to prune these and get them opened up. So I'm gonna be doing that today. I'm gonna take you guys along with me. I'm gonna start with this plant right here, and it's looking a little funky because it's got a bit of a curve going, but this is one of my San Marzano tomato plants and it's Indeterminate. So I'm gonna be pruning this one quite a bit. The first thing I do when I look at my tomato plants is I check out the bottom third of the plant. So right now that's probably about where the Florida weave is, where it starts, and then underneath. And then any branches or leaves that are touching the ground like this one or close to it get removed. So I've just got my pruners and I'm just going through and I see one over here. So I'm gonna clip that one too. And then this one is debatable because it's really close and I wanna cut it, but it's also pretty high on the plant. And I don't wanna take too much of the plant at once, but because it's curved so low, I am gonna take it. I don't like leaves touching the soil or being really close to touching the soil because anytime it rains or they get watered, a little bit of soil always kind of splashes back onto the leaves, and that's a really easy way to spread disease or fungus or basically anything that you don't want spread between your soil and your tomatoes. If you've noticed in the past that your tomatoes get diseased really early in the year, if you live kind of like a wetter climate and you haven't been pruning the lower part of your tomato plants, maybe try it this year. Not maybe, you should try it this year and it will help out a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that one too. And then down here you can see that this is trying to put on almost like a second stem really low, but I don't want that either. So you can already see the airflow that's been created just in that lower third, removing all those branches and all those leaves, and it already looks much better. And then one more thing I want to do to my Indeterminate varieties, and this is what I won't be doing on my Determinates or my Romas, is I'm going to remove the suckers. So if I look at this tomato plant right here, and I've already gone through and pruned this one time when I started the Florida weave, so I don't have as many suckers as normal, but I do have a few that I'm going to prune today and I can show you guys. If you look at this plant, and I twist it kind of so you can see it, this main stem, I'm going to follow it up. Wherever there's a lateral branch, so right here, and then, so here's the main stem and this is a lateral branch coming out. Whenever there's a little, called another little branch, or it's called a sucker, growing in almost like the armpit or that space in between at 45 degrees, this is a sucker. Now, if you let this grow, it will eventually put on flowers. It'll almost grow like another tomato plant connected to your tomato plant. And if you want a ton of tomatoes, you could leave it. It will have tomatoes eventually, but if you leave all of your suckers on your Indeterminate varieties, you're gonna end up with a really bushy plant. and you might end up with more tomatoes, but they might be smaller overall. So on my indeterminates, I always go through here, and if they're small like this, I just pick them off. But if they're much bigger, then I use my actual pruner. So that one had to go, and then I think down here, there's a little one right there starting, and that one has to go too. I can show you on this other one right next to it, which I already did that bottom third of. This one's got a couple suckers that need to be removed. So I'll show you them on here. If I move this branch, right here you can see, so this is the main stem here. This is a lateral branch, and then this is a sucker. It's a little bigger, so I'll use my clippers. I'm gonna clip that and pull it. And then this would eventually, like I said, flower and grow tomatoes. So you're more than welcome to leave them, but I don't like super bushy plants. Bushy plants are plants that touch each other side to side. They spread disease easier, so I clip them. So then here's another one in here. Clip those. This one I can just pull with my finger, and it looks like that's it for that one. So you can already see just how much better that looks when they have less of those branches that aren't necessary on them. And it looks like I've got one up here too. So that one I will use my clippers, and you know what? That didn't get as close as I'd like. So I'm gonna go like that. Just like that. Now that one's good. I've got another San Marzano over here looking kind of crazy. So I'm gonna show you the whole process again. So the lower leaves, like this one, I'm gonna make sure to not snip the twine of my Florida weave, because I have done that before. I'm gonna get all of these lower branches. And this one really needs that airflow because it has this marigold totally impeding on its space. And then again, anything kind of in between in those armpit areas I'm gonna do. So that one is gone. And then it looks like I've got this one right here. This is a huge sucker. This whole thing. Sometimes if you let them go too long, you can't even tell it's a sucker anymore because it's so thick and big. But this one is, and this one has got to go. So I'm pulling that. This one up here. That one's getting trimmed. There's a little one in here. And I think that's it for now. Sometimes I need to take a step back and just check out the whole plant. Yeah, I think that's it. So this one's totally good, nice and pruned. So moving on to my Roma tomatoes, the pruning for these ones starts the same in that I'm gonna take my pruners and I'm gonna get any of the lower branches and lower leaves that are touching the ground. However, what I'm not gonna do is remove those suckers that we were removing on the indeterminate varieties. The Roma tomatoes or your determinate tomatoes, they're gonna grow to a determined or a set size, and they're gonna put on a bunch of fruit, and then they might put on, you know, a little bit after throughout the season, but they're not gonna keep on getting taller and taller. They're gonna get as big as they get. Their size is predetermined. They're determinate tomatoes. So I don't wanna remove the suckers from these because, like I said, the suckers do eventually produce flowers and they produce tomatoes, and I need to get as many tomatoes out of these as I can while it's alive and while it's growing, you know, to that maximum height. If I remove the suckers on these ones, I'm gonna have a much smaller harvest. So your Roma tomatoes, and that's why these are like bush varieties, they're meant to grow really big in bushes because they don't get so tall like the indeterminate tomatoes. I did prune some suckers last year on my Romas because I felt like the plants were so bushy and big that they just needed that airflow and they needed help. And I was kicking myself like the whole season because I did not get the harvest that I should have gotten from the amount of Roma tomatoes I had. So this year I'm gonna be good and I'm only going to trim these lower leaves and I'm not going to take away any of the suckers. So again, I like to just remove no more than like a third of the plant at a time. So in these cages, I mean, this is honestly perfect because this plant goes up to this section here. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So I'm only gonna look at the leaves and branches below this bar on this lower third and clip the ones that are touching the ground in here. As big and as bushy as this one is, the only thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna come in here and get anything in this lower third. And even like, a good thing about these cages is you can kind of like cheat it a little bit because this one here, if you can see it, this one is touching the ground, but it actually starts all the way up here on the plant. So I'm gonna reach down and grab it, and carefully, hopefully I don't snap it, I'm just going to bring it up over this cage and let the cage then, whoa, what did that get eaten by? Do you see that? I don't know. That's not good. Anyways, I'm glad I'm getting it off the ground. Oh, you know what? There's a giant, all of that straw's moved back there. I think there was a critter in here. Great. Anyways, well, I'll live. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, I reached in here and I can put it above this bar in the cage. So I actually don't have to cut it. I can leave it for the plant. But now it's off the ground. So I'm gonna do that with these ones too, if I can. I'm just gonna pull them up over, and then that will reveal anything underneath that can't make it over. I can still cut off. So I've gone through and I've pruned just these bottom bits off of all of these romas. You can see how nice and clear it is at the bottom, but then I left everything up top. Look at that contrast. It's nice and clean, jungle, clean, jungle. And it's like that everywhere. But this is going to be the best way. I have healthy plants and also a ton of tomatoes. So here again, clean, and then nice and bushy still up there. And I did that to all 3 beds of romas. I also went through and did my indeterminates. This is all of the leaves, or I guess all the branches that I trimmed off, plus there's some marigolds in there that I deadheaded and kind of pruned because they were taking over the space. But look how good these look. You can see all of that space underneath, and then also just going up the plant. There's so much more airflow. I mean, you can literally see all the way across to that next row. And you can see how good those look too. This one is looking good. This one over here. Again, you can see that back row over there. This one nice and clean. Pretty much all the way up. And then over here, and I'll back up so you can see just how much better this bed looks. And I'll insert some footage here of the before again, just so you guys can see where these started and how bushy they were and how much extra foliage there was, and just kind of crazy they were looking. And now you can look again and see how nice and cleaned up it is. And all throughout the season, as these tomatoes get taller and taller, I'll keep trimming this bottom part. So eventually, probably the first 2 feet of the plant, probably almost this entire plant, will lose its lateral branches, and then I will trim suckers all season. This is oddly enough like one of my favorite chores to do in the garden. It's a lot of work and you have to go through each individual plant, but I just love the way that when you're done, they look so nice and clean, and you can actually see the bed of your garden again. I also went through here and pulled some weeds here and there because I could finally see them, thankfully. And I also, and I'm realizing right here, got to do that too, deadheaded some of these marigolds, but everything is looking good. And yeah, I probably won't have to prune again for probably 2 weeks. I think next on my list of chores for the tomatoes is I have to fertilize later this week, and then I need to add another row of Florida weave eventually. But besides that, everything is looking good for tonight. So I'm done. It's really hot here tonight in Michigan, and I won't complain because we had such a cold start to summer, or I guess spring, that no complaining about the heat. I absolutely love it at this point, but it's getting late. It's time to go in. So if you made it to the end of this video, I hope this was helpful for you. If you're growing tomatoes, I hope this helped you learn how to prune them, or just maybe, I don't know, refresh your memory if you already knew how to prune tomatoes. But if you want to see more gardening content, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Follow me on Instagram at morethangardening, TikTok at morethangardening_. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.